1 minute ago, an alleged sentence detonated inside the monarchy's inner circle. William tells Charles, "Camilla must be removed before I take the throne." Not hinted. Not softened. An ultimatum delivered with the cold clarity of someone who believes the future depends on it. Tonight, we unravel what could drive an heir to demand a Queen Consort's removal, what Charles stands to lose if he refuses, and why this moment could be the beginning of a royal civil war. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It spreads the way true palace panic always spreads: fast, quiet, and impossible to stop. Not through microphones or press releases, but through hurried whispers and tightened faces. One person hears it, then another. A single line, repeated with disbelief and dread, begins to rewrite the atmosphere inside the institution. Camilla must be removed. And the most terrifying part isn't the boldness of the demand. It's the fact that it sounds prepared, like a conclusion reached long before it was spoken. As if the heir isn't improvising, he's delivering the final line of an argument that has been building behind closed doors for months. Because an ultimatum like that doesn't come from emotion alone. It comes from a calculation so severe it can justify breaking a family in order to preserve a crown. In that moment, William isn't just a son speaking to a father. He's the future speaking to the present, forcing a choice that turns love into a liability. Duty weaponized against devotion. And Charles, caught in the middle, hears the sentence as more than a demand. He hears it as a threat to the continuity he was sworn to protect. If he refuses, he risks a fracture so public it could poison the next reign before it even begins. If he accepts, he validates the darkest truth of monarchy: affection survives only until it becomes inconvenient. The word removed is where the fear sharpens. Removed doesn't mean a bad week of headlines. It implies power, access, legitimacy, the invisible architecture that decides who gets to stand close, who gets to speak, who gets to be seen as part of the story. Removed suggests a rewriting of status, a narrowing of movement, a quiet stripping away that leaves a person present in name but absent in influence. It's not just a personal insult. It's institutional surgery. And if a Queen Consort can be treated as removable, then no role inside that palace is truly safe. Not for spouses, not for advisors, not even for blood. That's why the stakes instantly widen into something darker, a potential purge of the narrative itself. If Camilla can be targeted, then the palace is signaling it is willing to sacrifice anyone who complicates the clean era it wants to sell. And that raises the question nobody dares ask out loud in the moment, because even thinking it feels like treason. Is this demand coming from William's own conviction? Or is he voicing what powerful factions have been pushing for months? Because in royal crises, the heir rarely speaks alone. Sometimes he speaks with a chorus behind him: advisors, courtiers, strategists, people who survive by shaping outcomes before the public can react. And then there's the timing, the part that makes the ultimatum feel like a clock striking midnight. Why now? What changed in the last 48 hours? A leak that exposed something too sensitive? A poll, a forecast, a warning from the palace's image guardians, or something more personal, an internal breach so severe it made William decide the future cannot begin with Camilla still standing where she stands. Because an heir doesn't draw a line this hard unless he believes a storm is already arriving, and he wants the palace ready when it hits. So the real cliffhanger isn't whether William said it, it's what he meant by it. Was it a warning meant to jolt Charles into action? Or a condition backed by a plan already in motion, briefings scheduled, allies aligned, mechanisms prepared so that even if Charles hesitates, the removal begins anyway, quietly, relentlessly, without waiting for his permission? But to understand why William would draw a line this hard, we have to decode what removed really means inside palace language and why Camilla has become the monarchy's most dangerous symbol. In royal life, nobody says exile, nobody says punishment, they say removed. A word that sounds tidy until you realize it can dismantle a life without ever leaving fingerprints. In this section, we expose what removed allegedly covers: the silent reduction of titles, the narrowing of access, the slow vanishing from official history. Because if William used that word to Charles, he wasn't talking about emotion, he was talking about operations. Because removed is palace code, and palace code is designed to keep hands clean while outcomes turn brutal. It isn't one act, it's a process with stages, a corridor of decisions where every door closes so quietly the public barely hears it. First comes the adjustment, the tiny shift framed as routine, fewer invitations, fewer duties, fewer moments where the cameras can capture her significance. Then comes the narrowing of access, the subtle message that certain rooms are no longer hers by default. The staff changes tone, the schedules change shape, the introductions change just enough to feel like an accident until it happens again, and again, and again. From the outside it looks natural, on the inside it feels engineered. That is the genius and the cruelty of royal removals. They can look like time, health, privacy, focus, anything that sounds respectful. And behind that respectful language is ruthless arithmetic. Reduced visibility becomes reduced relevance. Reduced relevance becomes reduced protection. And once protection thins, the palace can do the part it really wants: rewrite the story so it feels like the person was always fading. A slow vanishing from official history without ever saying the word vanish. But forcing out a consort is taboo for a reason. It risks shattering the monarchy's unity myth, the illusion that this institution is above the messiness of normal families. So the word removed protects decision-makers. No explicit cruelty, only necessary adjustments. No public condemnation, only rebalancing responsibilities. No blame, only moving forward. The palace can claim dignity while the person at the center of it feels the ground disappear beneath them. And Camilla is uniquely vulnerable inside this language because her legitimacy has always been negotiated, never absolute. She doesn't sit in the story like an unchallenged pillar. She sits like a bridge the public was asked to cross. Some crossed willingly, some crossed resentfully, some never crossed at all. When legitimacy is negotiated, it can be renegotiated. And when the heir uses the word removed, the message is chilling, the negotiation is over, and the terms have changed. That's where the mechanism begins to show its shape. Soft exile first, formal severance later. Step 1 is disappearance by increments. Step 2 is official distancing, titles used less, roles reduced, patronages reassigned, proximity to the monarch subtly restricted. By the time anything becomes formal, the public has already been trained not to expect her. The palace doesn't remove someone in one blow unless it has to. It removes in layers, because layers are easier to defend. So when William says she must be removed, the real question isn't whether Charles is shocked. It's what leverage makes Charles unable to dismiss it. Because a king can refuse a demand unless refusing threatens something bigger than the marriage itself, unless the refusal risks a fracture in succession, a collapse in unity, a war of narratives the palace can't win. And if that leverage exists, it means removed isn't a threat. It's a timetable. And that leverage begins with the most uncomfortable truth of all. Camilla isn't just a person in this story, she's a symbol that divides the monarchy's past from its future. Every monarchy has a shadow it tries to outgrow, but some shadows don't fade, they wait. In this chapter, we explore why Camilla allegedly remains the institution's most volatile fault line, admired, resented, tolerated, and endlessly debated. Because William's demand suggests the palace believes the next reign cannot begin with unresolved controversy. And if that's true, Camilla isn't just standing in the way, she's being positioned as the price of a clean era. She is a lightning rod in a way few royal figures ever become, a permanent risk, because she triggers permanent polarization. For some, she represents steadiness and endurance, the quiet partner who kept the king grounded. For others, she represents a wound that never fully closed, a reminder that the monarchy can ask the public to accept something they didn't choose and call it duty. That split matters, because William's reign, if it's to be strong, needs the country arguing about the future, not relitigating the past. And the palace fears contamination, the idea that every new initiative, every new speech, every new chapter will be dragged back into the same old controversy, like a chain around the next crown. Inside the palace, that fear hardens into legitimacy anxiety. Who is accepted, and who is merely endured? Who belongs naturally, and who belongs by force of precedent and stubbornness? These are dangerous questions because they don't stay theoretical. They shape invitations, influence, and alliances. And beneath the politics is personal pain, family memory, and resentment, the kind that doesn't vanish just because time passes. The monarchy can script ceremonies, but it can't script what people feel in private. And private feelings have a way of shaping public outcomes when power is involved. Something, allegedly, has relit the fuse. A trigger event. A new leak that exposed too much. Renewed scrutiny that made the palace feel cornered. Or an internal breach of trust that convinced William the next crisis won't be manageable with smiles and silence. Because William's demand carries an implication that feels heavier than scandal, he believes something worse is coming. Something that could destabilize the monarchy at the exact moment it needs clarity. And in that panic, permission to belong becomes conditional again, because conditional acceptance is always one crisis away from revocation. So Camilla's position isn't merely debated. It's weighed, calculated, treated like a variable that can be adjusted to protect the next era. And if William is drawing a line now, it suggests he isn't reacting to a headline, he's reacting to a forecast. A threat, a consequence he believes is already moving toward them. And if William believes something worse is coming, then we have to ask what pushed him to speak like this, because heirs don't issue ultimatums without backing. The public sees William as calm, measured, inevitable. But behind palace doors, calm can be a weapon. In this section, we map the alleged logic behind his ultimatum, not hatred, not drama strategy. William knows his reign will be judged before it begins, and he may believe Camilla's presence guarantees permanent conflict. So when he says she must be removed, he's not pleading. He's setting terms for the future and daring his father to defy them. Because once you understand the monarchy as an organism that survives by controlling its image, William's calm stops looking like temperament and starts looking like discipline. He isn't reacting like a man caught in emotion. He's reacting like a leader who believes the institution is running out of room to maneuver. That's the essence of stability math, the cold arithmetic of what the public will tolerate, what the press will exploit, what rivals will weaponize, and what the palace will be forced to defend again and again, until defending it becomes the story. William's alleged ultimatum suggests he sees Camilla not as a person first, but as a permanent point of collision between the past and the future, an argument that will never end, a shadow that will never stop following the next reign. And that's where the emotional contradiction tightens. William can respect his father and still refuse to carry his burdens. He can understand Charles's loyalty and still judge it as costly. In that private moment, he isn't rejecting love, he's rejecting what love has done to the monarchy's stability. There's suppressed anger in that, not the loud kind, but the controlled kind that has been waiting for the moment it can justify itself. The kind that comes from growing up inside consequences, from watching how one relationship can shake a whole institution, from learning that in royal life, the personal becomes national, and the national becomes unforgiving. This is where the clean era idea turns from branding into survival. William's reign, in this alleged calculation, needs a unified narrative to breathe. Not perfection, just coherence. A story the public can understand without constantly being dragged backward. And if Camilla guarantees permanent conflict, then the choice becomes brutal. Keep her and inherit a war that never ends. Or remove her and begin the next chapter with a sharp, definitive line. That's why the ultimatum sounds less like cruelty and more like terms. A future king insisting that the future cannot begin under the old rules. But nobody arrives at a decision like that in isolation. William may also be under pressure advisors who live on forecasting public mood, strategists who treat sentiment like weather, courtiers who whisper that timing is everything. The palace doesn't wait for disasters. It tries to prevent them by editing the story before the public sees the draft. And in the middle of all those voices sits William's own history-old grievances, unresolved pain, and the quiet knowledge that if he inherits chaos, history will blame him for not stopping it sooner. That's the psychological trap. He must act now to avoid being judged later. And the foreshadowing becomes icy. In monarchy, fixing often means removing. It means choosing what the institution can carry and what it must set down to keep moving forward. So if William is setting terms, it raises the most dangerous question of all: what does he offer Charles in return? Silence to protect him from humiliation? Protection from public fallout? An exit strategy framed as dignity rather than defeat? Because an ultimatum this bold rarely comes without a bargain attached. It's not only a demand, it's a deal, one that forces Charles to choose between defending Camilla and securing his son's smooth ascent. But William doesn't move alone, because the palace never acts as one mind. It acts as factions. And factions don't advise. They demand. Palaces don't collapse from outside attacks, they fracture from inside ambition. While the public debates emotion, the palace calculates outcomes. In this section, we uncover the alleged coalition shaping William's stance. Traditionalists craving purity, strategists craving stability, reformers craving a reset, and opportunists craving power. If William issued an ultimatum, it may be because a powerful group has decided the same thing. Camilla must go so the next era can live. And once you picture the palace as a chessboard, the ultimatum starts to look less like a personal outburst and more like a coordinated pressure point finally applied. Traditionalists see Camilla as the complication that never should have been normalized. The symbol they believe dilutes the monarchy's dignity. Strategists don't care about romance, they care about stability. And they fear that the next reign will drown in permanent controversy if nothing changes. Reformers crave a reset, a monarchy that appears modern and decisive, unburdened by the same old debate. Opportunists quiet, patient see advantage in every crisis. They want proximity to power, influence over the next chapter, and the right to shape what gets remembered. Courtiers, always watching, align early to survive the storm. They sense which way the wind is turning and position themselves accordingly. Old resentments rise like ghosts who never accepted Camilla, who tolerated her only for Charles, who used her presence as leverage in private negotiations. And the PR pressure is relentless. A new era narrative works best with a clean break. A decisive moment that feels like leadership rather than drift. Beneath the polish is a deeper motive nobody says out loud: access, proximity and control of private records, the unseen power that comes from being close enough to know the truth before anyone else does. Then comes the whisper that turns faction into plan. One key power player allegedly flips. Not dramatically, not publicly quietly, decisively. A single shift that turns removal from an idea into an option, and an option into a timetable. Because once a crucial figure changes sides, hesitation becomes dangerous. The palace stops debating whether it can do it, and starts debating how fast it must. And when factions reach critical mass, they don't just argue, they activate the machinery designed to move people out of the spotlight without ever admitting they were pushed. The public thinks royal drama is emotional. The palace knows it's operational. A removal isn't one decision, it's a sequence. Briefings, controlled messaging, altered access, and a slow reduction that looks like natural change until it's irreversible. In this section, we unpack the alleged mechanics behind William's demand, because once the machine starts moving, it doesn't stop for anyone's feelings. And it doesn't ask for permission from the people it's about to erase, because when a future king draws a line, the palace doesn't respond with debate, it responds with procedure. First comes the internal recommendation, the quiet document that reframes a person as a risk. Not a wife, not a consort, not a human being with history, just a problem that must be managed for stability. That recommendation doesn't need to be long, it only needs to be clear. Then comes the briefing, where the order of information matters more than the information itself. Who is told first? Who is reassured? Who is warned? Who is watched? The palace is built on controlled knowledge, and in moments like this, knowledge becomes a weapon. From there, the staged optics begin the soft exile that looks polite from the outside and feels merciless on the inside. A schedule rebalancing, a few fewer appearances. An introduction that changes by a single word. Patronages that are reassigned for efficiency. It's never announced as punishment, because punishment would expose motive. Instead, it's presented as a natural evolution, a dignified adjustment. Something so reasonable that anyone questioning it sounds dramatic. That's how normalization works. The palace frames the removal as tradition, not retaliation. It wraps its decisions in the language of duty so the blade doesn't look like a blade. And the severance isn't only about being seen, it's symbolic. Titles and status markers get quietly minimized, used less often, mentioned less warmly, treated as optional. It's a signal broadcast to everyone inside the system. Power arrangements are shifting. The center of gravity is moving, the old protections are thinning. Because the warning beneath the procedure is unmistakable protection, depends on the monarch's active shield. If Charles hesitates, if he loses control, if the heir's authority begins to eclipse his own, then Camilla's security becomes conditional. Not on love, not on marriage, but on utility. That is what makes this sequence emotionally brutal. It isn't a single dramatic moment, it's humiliation by increments, isolation disguised as dignity, a life rewritten in real time while the person at the center is expected to cooperate with her own reduction. And the palace counts on one thing to make it work, that she will endure it the way she has endured everything else, quietly, carefully, without making the machine look cruel. But even within the palace, there's a darker whisper that makes the mechanics feel dangerous. There may be two versions of this plan. One gentle, slow fading, graceful retreat, plausible deniability, and one brutal, swift severance, hard boundaries, immediate distance, used only if resistance appears. The existence of two versions means the palace isn't asking whether removal will happen. It's deciding how much force it will need to apply when the moment comes. And that brings us to the variable the palace cannot fully control: Camilla herself. In palaces, the most dangerous person isn't the loud one, it's the one who knows too much. If Camilla senses she's being handled, she doesn't need a microphone to fight back. She needs leverage. In this chapter, we explore the alleged fear pulsing behind the palace's careful language, that Camilla may hold private truths the institution can't risk: letters, confidants, hidden bargains. Because when a woman is treated as removable, she starts thinking like a witness, not a wife. Her mindset shifts from endurance to calculation, pride and fatigue. Yes, but also a survival instinct sharpened by years of being watched. She notices the early warning signs: staff tone turning formal, invitations arriving late or not at all, doors that used to open smoothly now requiring permission. She feels the distance before anyone admits it exists. And once she feels it, she starts asking the question that terrifies institutions: what do I have that they need me to keep quiet? Because leverage doesn't have to be dramatic to be devastating. It can be diaries, private reflections that reveal how decisions were made. letters that prove promises, conversations remembered by the right confidants, trusted intermediaries who know where bodies are buried, not literally, but reputationally old bargains, quiet understandings, private arrangements the palace relies on never being spoken in plain terms. The fear isn't merely scandal, the fear is narrative collapse. If Camilla speaks with credibility, the palace loses control of the story it has spent decades shaping. And if she has proof, the risk becomes mutual destruction. If she falls loudly, others fall with her. That's the tragedy underneath the strategy. Love reduced to liability, partnership reduced to a problem. A woman who believed endurance bought permanence, realizing permanence was never promised. And then comes the message that turns quiet fear into open defiance: prepare for change. It lands like a warning dressed as courtesy. And in that moment, Camilla decides something the palace cannot predict with spreadsheets and protocols: she will not disappear quietly. But a plan only works if the target stays quiet, and Camilla, cornered by a future king's ultimatum, may decide silence is surrender. And once retaliation becomes possible, the palace does what it always does: it clamps down, and the story leaks anyway. The moment this story escapes the palace, it stops being a family issue and becomes a national trial. Whispers turn into headlines, headlines turn into factions, and suddenly the public is asked to decide who deserves mercy and who deserves exile. In this section, we dramatize the leak wave, anonymous sources, coordinated narratives, royal silence that pours fuel on the fire. Because if William truly told Charles Camilla must be removed, the palace didn't just face a crisis, it invited the world to judge it. It doesn't break as a clean revelation, it breaks as a leak wave, first a vague whisper from an unnamed insider, then a timed clarification that feels less like correction and more like confirmation. The language is always careful, always protected. Those close to the situation, palace sources, it's understood. But the effect is immediate. The story gains weight with every repetition, and soon it's not a rumor that needs proof, it's a narrative that demands response. And the palace, trained to move slowly, suddenly finds itself dragged into a pace it cannot control. The country polarizes almost on instinct. Some see Camilla as a survivor enduring years of hostility, holding steady under an impossible spotlight, paying for love with reputation and restraint. Others see her as the symbol of old wounds, a reminder of pain the monarchy never fully resolved, and they treat removal as overdue accountability rather than calculated strategy. Sympathy and resentment collide in public, and that collision becomes fuel. Because people aren't just arguing about Camilla, they're arguing about forgiveness, punishment, and whether the monarchy has the right to edit its own past whenever the future becomes inconvenient. Media dynamics turn the story into a machine that feeds on emotional conflict. Every headline sharpens the language. Every discussion becomes a courtroom. Every expert translates palace silence into meaning. The outrage cycles, the sympathy cycles, the speculation expands. And then the most powerful accelerant hits. Royal silence, no denial, no confirmation, just distance. But in scandal, distance is never neutral. Every non-denial becomes louder than denial. Every delayed appearance becomes a clue. Every carefully neutral phrase becomes a riddle people insist they can solve. The palace thinks silence will starve the story, but silence only convinces the public there's something too dangerous to admit. Inside the institution, the pressure becomes suffocating. Family members are forced to choose sides privately because neutrality is interpreted as disloyalty. Advisors push for containment, staff push for clarity, and everyone watches everyone else, trying to identify who is leaking and why. Panic doesn't look like shouting. It looks like tightened access, shortened conversations, closed circles. The palace tries to contain what it cannot confirm without validating, and that's the trap. The harder it clamps down, the more it signals fear. Then comes the cliffhanger that turns the scandal into a threat. A rumor surfaces naming the key supporter who pushed the removal plan, an identifiable figure, a recognizable influence, a name that suddenly gives the story a spine. Once that happens, the narrative stops being something happened. It becomes someone did this, and when the public believes someone did this, it doesn't just want answers, it wants consequences. If Camilla is removed, the palace will call it duty. But what if it's something colder, a controlled collapse, designed to reshape the monarchy before William's reign begins? In this final section, we connect every thread: the ultimatum, the factions, the machinery, the leaks, and the private fear behind public silence. And we ask the most unsettling question of all: was Camilla ever meant to stay? Or was she always the sacrifice the crown planned to make when survival demanded it? Because at the end of every royal crisis, there are win conditions, quiet outcomes that certain people need. Whose image improves if the monarchy looks decisive, corrective, purified for the next era? Whose power consolidates if William's reign begins with a clean narrative and fewer complicating figures near the center? Whose past gets rewritten if removal is framed as tradition rather than strategy? In that light, the ultimatum stops being personal and starts looking structural. A future king demanding a future that doesn't carry the weight of unresolved controversy. And the tragedy is that the people living inside this crisis still bleed like human beings. Charles is torn between love and legacy, between the woman beside him and the institution above him. If he fights, he risks the very stability he claims to protect. If he yields, he condemns Camilla to abandonment by the machine that once pretended to accept her. And Camilla, who may have believed endurance bought permanence, faces the cruel discovery that permanence was never guaranteed. In the palace, belonging is never unconditional. It is rented. And the rent is obedience. That's where the bargaining chip theory becomes chilling: agree quietly, and we'll manage the fallout. Accept the narrative and we'll preserve your dignity. Resist, and the brutal version of the plan activates. It is survival through sacrifice, one reduced to protect the symbol. And once you accept that logic, the most haunting implication follows: the palace is willing to discipline its own. Not out of rage, but out of calculation. Because fear makes institutions ruthless, and tradition makes ruthlessness sound respectable. So the final cliffhanger isn't just whether Camilla is removed, it's what removal proves. If they can remove a consort when pressure rises, who gets removed next in the next crisis? A spouse, an advisor, a sibling, anyone who becomes inconvenient to the story the crown needs to sell. That's why this isn't just gossip. It's a lesson about power, how it protects itself, how it edits reality, how it convinces the world the sacrifice was necessary. And if that unsettles you, it should, because the monarchy's greatest strength has always been myth, and its greatest danger has always been what it's willing to do to preserve that myth. And once names enter the arena, the monarchy isn't dealing with gossip anymore, it's dealing with betrayal. Because the real shock isn't William's demand, it's what that demand reveals about how quickly the monarchy will sacrifice anyone to protect itself. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.